Hi, and welcome to Gamers Explain. I'm Qralloq, and this is episode 7. In this week's episode, we have an interview with Antiproduct, and he's a new user to Gamers Explain, so I thought it would be wonderful to talk to him about how he found us and what he found. Following that, we have a meme of the week. Then we have QQ&AA, my own version of questions and answers, where I answer questions about using grids and other tools that you normally find on a table in a play-by-post environment. Then I have a Canadian action news, and then Qralloqian Lore, where I discuss the administrative control panel on Gamers Plane. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Got it.
Hi, and welcome to Gamers Explain. I'm Qralloq, and I have with me Antiproduct, a fairly new user to Gamers Plane, and I think to tabletop RPGs in general. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Thank you for having me. My history with RPGs tabletop have been a bumpy and weird one, to be honest. I mean, I came across this, I was looking for a tabletop game, and I stumbled across a box that said Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop game. And I was like, starter pack. I was like, whoa, this looks interesting, but I'm Greek, and it was translated to Greek. So, and the translation can get a bit weird, to say the least, because they tried to translate things like clerics and all those terminology that is involved in RPGs and fantasy games. And it doesn't quite translate that good.
Right, yeah.
So, to be honest, I got the damn thing, and we couldn't, me and my younger brother couldn't figure out how someone would play the damn thing. It didn't make clear that someone had to be a dungeon master, that he would lay out the game and be responsible for everything. So yeah, that was a bust.
Back in 1981 or so, when I first started playing, I bought this box, like you. There's this red box. It's Dungeons and Dragons, the basic set. So it's this red box, and inside were 2 books, a player's book and a DM's book, and then dice and a crayon, because the dice had grooves in them, but they weren't colored, so you use the crayon to fill in the numbers on the dice.
And you said the red box, so I'm assuming it was the second or first edition?
It was first edition, yeah.
Yeah, I figured out from the red box I got the light brown one. Was the third, I guess.
Yeah.
Not the easiest one to introduce someone to RPGs.
Now in the red box, it was a starter set as well. They had a solo adventure, and so it was just like a choose your own adventure, kind of written out in like 15 pages in the beginning. And it's like, okay, you're a cleric, and here's your stats, and you go through. If you open a door, go to this entry. You take damage, you rolled a hit, and then you kind of just played a solo adventure with the book. It was kind of a way to.
That actually makes more sense. I mean, it would get you to a process of like a walkthrough.
Yep. Yeah.
Because the starter set for the third edition was here are some pre-made characters. It's an empty character sheet if you want to make character yourself. This is a dungeon map for you. There are some gibberish notes that if you don't know what you're reading, you don't know what you're reading. So I mean, someone with no experience in the field wouldn't get what's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm saying again, especially with the translation going on, if you didn't know what role-playing games were and how does it usually go, you would be like, what did I buy? What's going on?
Yeah. So how did you break through that barrier then?
Well, I've been playing games online, like mostly my age, and we have read about, with the internet going higher speeds, etc., and getting internet access at home. Well, it was easier to search things online. So, and I think there were some references in movies or something. So, give me one tiny second. Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
So, what was I saying?
So with the internet access around your community,
Yeah, I can't remember for sure if it was from a movie or a TV series reference or something. I think no. Now that I remember it more, more right, it was an Xbox game.
oh,
Had an Xbox console and came across this Dungeons and Dragons game. So I was like, hey, that title seems familiar. So I got the game and played it. So I still did, at that point, I still didn't got the how those two were related. I mean, the one thing was a box, the other thing was a game that I would be playing. So I still didn't got it at the point. But yeah, getting older and stuff, I got more familiar with the RPG, tabletop RPGs, but couldn't get a party or anything that easily. And fast forwarding a lot of few years in the future, my brother actually that found a couple of guys that were also interested, and they were actually playing already. It was a 3.5 version of D&D. So he got into a party, was playing. He told me one day, hey, we're playing D&D finally, so just come along and see, and maybe you play some NPC and see how it goes. And yeah, I would have gone for a coffee like for an hour or two, and 8 hours later, my my wife was like, where are you? What has happened to you? So yeah, that was a deep dive.
yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah, when I was introduced, it was like brothers of a friend, and they're just like, "Hey, do you want to play D&D?" And I'm like, "Okay." And next thing you know, we were buying our own books, and this was grade 4, grade 5, so we would have been maybe just around age 10. So we had no idea what we're doing, but we'd been shown at least the one time, right? And so we just learned, taught each other how to play, and over time, like you, prior to the advent of the internet or access to the internet, there's just no real good way to find people to play D&D with. And we there's all kinds of like code words, like wear a nerdy shirt and carry a player's handbook and just walk around in public reading it. Nerds will find you, right?
Yeah, or carry a sign with you.
Yeah.
like DM looking for players or something.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually found, I said this in a prior segment, we found some people with just like in a newsletter, like advertisements for new players. And I guess need finds a way.
Yeah, that thing actually was something that was bugging me, and I was thinking about it, that in public libraries, I mean, people should have donated some tabletop RPG books in libraries,
Yeah.
public libraries that people could have access. And just me, or I don't know, but it would make sense, because it's like it's an activity for children, and not only, of course, but when you're young, you have your imagination quite active.
Yeah.
And it would be, I think, an interesting thing to have maybe in schools. I mean, I don't know about your, I mean, I might actually know a bit more about your educational system in Canada or in the US, but it's quite different from what we got here. I mean, there aren't like clubs at school that you would do, that children would gather and do things like a chess club or a book club. There are no such things.
Really?
Yep.
So it's just show up to school, attend your classes, and then you get shuffled out?
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, let's not take that bait at the moment, but yeah, that's how we are more. We know more about your culture, your educational system than we care about ours, because we see how ours is, and we see what's going on at civilized world outside. So yeah, that's one thing.
Well, it's funny, you're on an island with probably 9,000 years of recorded history, and here in North America,
Maybe more.
and here in North America, we have civilization and signs of it going back that long, but what you would call civilization really doesn't occur until just very, very recently in the in mankind's timeline. So
In mankind's timeline, it could be seconds. No offense or anything, but yeah.
yeah.
And but just a trivia fact: my grandfather had been an immigrant to Canada, actually, after the Second World War and the some recession we had in Greece at that point or something. He came to Canada actually to work in Montreal.
Oh, neat.
So yeah, I have pictures of my dad in short pants and stuff in Montreal.
Huh.
But they didn't thought it out, and they came back.
We're in a game of Tales from the Loop together, and my character, Georgie, is modeled after a friend of mine from when I was probably grade 4 or grade 5, and he was actually a Greek kid. So his name was George, and then he had this really long last name that I can't remember for the life of me, but it ended up with, Opolis.
So he was a Greek.
Yeah, very Greek family. I think George would have been, I don't even think he was born in Canada, but he lived long enough that he spoke like the rest of us. He had no inherited accent, but his family was very Greek. And, but he was just like the funniest kid. He was just a really great friend. And then they moved away at some point and lost touch with him. But, yeah, so my character is basically my memories of this old friend. Yeah.
Which is something nice, and I think that playing role-playing games can get you to do stuff like that you might want, that you would want to do, but you couldn't reenact things and make them turn out differently, perhaps, especially in a game like you mentioned that we're 10 to 15-year-olds, if I'm not mistaken.
I think we're 11 to 13 or somewhere around there.
I mean, the maximum I think was 14 or 15. I can't remember right now.
Yeah.
Didn't go max, didn't give me luck points. So yeah, I had to go somewhere in the middle, you know, somewhere in between that I felt comfortable with.
Now your character is Jaden, who's the rocker.
Yeah, that's quite some meta going on over there. Because Jaden's nickname is Black, which is a reference to, with his initial being J, would be J Black. It's a reference to Jack Black. Yes, with Pick of Destiny and School of Rock and all that stuff.
It's from a little town called Kickapoo.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it to you that when we were discussing about our character creation, that the moment that I decided to go for a rocker, I was in between a rocker and a weirdo. And the moment that I decided to go for rocker, I got Kickapoo stuck in my mind.
Yeah. I love the scene in that movie with Ronnie James Dio coming out of the wall in his poster.
Yes, out of the poster. It's legendary.
Yeah.
It was legendary.
So we've chatted a fair bit on Discord, and one of the things that we've talked about is Discord itself and how it provides a additional tool set for play-by-post games. I mean, play-by-post is pretty slow. You post, you wait for somebody to respond. Sometimes they're like maybe in Southern Europe and, you know, on a completely different time schedule than you. And so
tell me about it.
Yeah, and you've taken into, I think we're in 2 games together, and in both games where you post, then you just go into Discord and post a little icon of like a pencil and a check mark, basically saying, "Hey, post it," and that because there's just a good way to notify. Yeah,
that was an idea from that I ripped off from my first game that I got into in exPlane, with a big shout out to my to one of my DMs, Tenrek.
Right.
Because he got the idea. He made the game, made the forums, and then he said, "Okay, we're going to this." I mean, we were chatting through Discord after we exchanged some PMs, and he said, "Okay, I'm making a server so we could chat more directly." And as me, as we talked with him and the other players, said, okay, let's decide on emoji that would be a notification for a new post. And as players have this notepad and pencil emoji for notification, and our DM's notification emoji is skull and crossbones, naturally,
Yeah.
because DMs. Gotta love them, gotta hate them.
Yeah. So you had some other ideas about how Discord could be more formally integrated into the whole process. And I'm not sure what the technical details of that are.
It's not that I'm an expert or anything, like just speedballing things and ideas popping in, but I've seen it firsthand in the aforementioned, sorry again, but my mother language, and have been lacking practice. And so, as I was saying, I've seen it in firsthand. I mean, Tenrec would make some separate text channels that would be a general chat for making post notifications, general a chit chat channel for randomness, memes, whatever, you know. There would be also a maps channel that a character would, a player would volunteer to say, hey, I'll be making maps, because the DM would describe it, write it quite neatly, but there are people like myself that sometimes their theater of mind is a bit lacking, or that you know how play by post is. Time passes by, you forget what the hell was 2 freaking corridors ago.
Yeah.
So there's also that. It's been compartmental. Damn it. It actually it formulates itself, the server, as the campaign goes and needs occur. You say, hey, I think we need a channel for that. Someone to make maps and post them there, so we can have them all at one place, and we don't have to scroll up and down to find the pictures, and we don't need to save them on a folder. I mean, I usually, because of the time differences, because most of the games, I think, no, all of the games that I'm at are in a different time zone than me. So I'm usually at lunch break at work when I check, when everybody's been posting like crazy. It's like, for me, it's 8:30 in the morning. I've just went to work, and I'm like, and my phone would stop ringing from notifications from, got an email from gamers playing, new post. I'm like, come on. When's lunch break? Got to see what has happened. So, but the Discord is saving us the trouble from the bit cumbersome part of the email notifications. We're in another game together with I won't butcher his name.
Qralloq.
Yep. Thank you. He would murder my character if I murdered his name. With Qralloq, and that I didn't got the email, and you were waiting for like what, a week or something to respond.
Yeah.
And he got he got to me through Discord and said, "Hey, are you okay? Or, are you still in?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" So there's that.
Yeah, the game notifications, I turned them off a long time ago, years ago. I actually went through and just eliminated all. So GamersPlay never sends me an email except for private messages. And the reason is that there's a bottleneck somewhere and they just can be very slow. And so I was generally having already read and responded to most emails, because once I'm in so many games that I just refresh. I just go to the site and refresh and that's how I get my notifications. And I do it all the time.
I don't know how exactly it works, but there are sites that when you go and then there's a pop-up box that goes, this site can get you notifications. Do you want to turn them on? That's what I get in using Chrome, at least. I don't know. In some sites, not all of them. So I'm guessing that's a feature that could be implemented if possible, at least. Getting notifications through browser directly.
Right. I think the issue is that the email hosting service that's being used has some unique challenges, and so because generally the site will automatically email you as long as you subscribe to a thread. It'll automatically email you whenever somebody changes that thread, and so as long as the speed of email should be very fast, seconds, but it's not always delivered in that speedy of a way.
Yeah, that's one issue, which could be eliminated either by this browser notification system, which I have no clue about how it works.
No,
to be honest,
anyway.
I'm not the programmer type of guy. I mean, the last time I did a format was in using setting up Windows 98 second edition. That was the one time before I did a format. I got involved with any software. And after that, I had to get my Windows on my laptop, and which was a great shock, actually, going from opening the CD drive, putting the CD, and go boot it from hey, just download it and put it on a stick. So yeah, I've given up on catching up with the news in software, etc.
Yeah. So you experimented with D&D, then you found the tabletop role-playing community online through Play by Post.
That's another interesting story, actually, that at the time when I found the tabletop playing party, I was pretty much just married, more or less, and we began playing, and then fatherhood happened. So
Congratulations.
thank you. Likewise. I have a frisky 2-year-old. Yeah. I'm keeping polyhedral dice around him, and I'm already planning out my Hero Kids campaign for him.
Okay, yeah. I got my daughter playing a game called Tiny Horses. It's an independent RPG based loosely on My Little Pony. And she really liked My Little Pony. And so we played Tiny Horses a bunch when she was probably 7 or 8. Then we tried No Thank You Evil from Monty Cook Games. So it's a simplified version of their cipher system. And but she hasn't really been that interested since then. And she's 15, so she's pretty nerdy. It kind of surprises me. We're not playing D&D all the time, but
well, it happens, you know.
Yeah.
They got to find their own role.
Yeah, children rebel. Yeah, so her parents are nerds, so she's going to be popular just to spite us.
As long as they don't turn into bullies, I'm fine with anything.
Yeah.
So we're talking about how I got into play by post.
Right.
As I was saying, fatherhood happened, so I couldn't attend an average of 8-hour sessions. It just wasn't possible. I mean, you know how these things go. So my DM got me by the shoulder and told me, okay, look, there are some dark corners in the internet. I mean, you're laughing because I've already told you so. There are dark corners in the internet that people gather and they play RPGs in forums. And I said, how can that be? He said, it's possible, just trust me. Look, just search for it. And I did a first search back then, but I didn't come by exPlane then. And the other side seemed a bit cumbersome or not quite welcoming, actually. I mean, at least to my eyes, I don't know. They seemed a bit too much. Like too much volume of information, stuff that you are not, especially when you're not familiar with it. I mean, when you're just having like 5 sessions of 3.5 under your belt, and that's your whole experience with tabletop, you can be play by post side with a dozen or more systems, and terminology that you're not familiar with can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've got a lot of experience and been playing for a long time and played more than 100 systems, I'm sure. But when I go to a site like RPOL or RPG Crossing, or I guess there's Tavern Keeper, there's a whole bunch, Board Game Geek, and just the presentation of the materials is overwhelming, and I know what I'm seeing. I can't even imagine what it's like for somebody who's really trying to learn the language, like the lingo of gaming as well.
Exactly. I mean, I've been playing games online, and I'm a bit familiar with gaming slang and abbreviations,
Yeah.
etc. But you always learn new things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I gave up my search the first time, but you know, there's the itch that we call it, that you want to play, you want to do this because it's fun. I mean, it branches out from playing a game to making miniatures, terrain, dioramas, writing your own adventures, sketching or making your own portraits of your character or your party portraits. I mean, it just branches out like mad. I mean, that's how I see it, at least. It's maybe the artist in me.
I've talked before, and maybe this will come out in the next episode. I'll air with Hero Among Men, but D&D has a whole bunch of mini games. There's a whole bunch of things on the side. Like there's the core game, which is the adventure. But then there's a whole bunch of little things you do on the side, like leveling up, or painting miniatures, or building terrain. And there's just all these little things that you can add on to the core game, and just each one of them is interesting in its own way.
And with technology being developed more as years pass by, I mean, now with 3D printing and 3D printers being accessible and cheap, I mean, they've been getting dirty cheap as we speak. They are raising 3D printers that you can print miniatures that are so detailed that you wouldn't expect from a machine that you have at your home, at your garage or whatever, that's under 300 bucks, euros, whatever price is low. And you can have with a single print you can get 10 miniatures, for example, that you would probably pay a good sum to get them at the store. I mean, I haven't bought any. I'm quite new at the hobby, but I'm guessing you know this better than me. How miniatures cost, how much they cost, and how difficult it is to get them.
Yeah.
Whilst now, I mean, there are sites that you can buy your 3D files. I mean, you're buying one single goblin and you can print 10,000 strong of them. Now, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And your resin tank. But anyway, you know what I'm getting.
Dungeons and Dragons for a while had a tactical board game, and so it was based upon their little miniatures, and they were the right size for actually using for D&D. So they'd fit on a 1 inch by 1 inch grid, or 2.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters if you don't live in the third world.
Yeah, I've been. It's don't mind that. I'm familiarized with that.
I like to poke fun at the US, is because like the US and 2 other nations in the world still use the imperial system. But because the US is such a huge, as you've alluded to earlier, such a huge source of popular culture, the rest of the world, I think, is largely familiar with the concept of inches and feet and miles.
Yeah. And this little guy with a calculus going, okay, says feet, so it's just calculating, trying to figure out how far the damn thing went.
Yeah. Yeah, so D&D, Wizards of the Coast, built this tabletop board game, and you could just buy boxes of random miniatures. It was kind of like Magic the Gathering, but instead of getting cards, you'd get miniatures. And so you'd get this random box, you'd open it up, and my wife and I just went mad for this stuff. Like, we spent between $500 and $1,000 in just a short order, and we didn't make a lot of money. It would just, but the surprises, and sometimes they would be big miniatures, like giant size, and sometimes, yeah.
If you've been into trading card games like Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh for younger people, even Pokemon cards, you know how that thing goes. You just keep buying freaking sleeves of them.
Yeah. There's that excitement when you open it, and it's like, oh, I haven't seen this one before. Or, okay, I've already got 9 zombies. Like, okay, now I've got a horde of zombies, so I can put them on the table, and they all look the same, and but
yeah, that's it.
But yeah, being able to 3D print those saves a lot, because quite often in D&D you're fighting a pack of things like, 10 wolves or, a small platoon of orcs. And so being able to have a representative miniature rather than just putting a D6 down for each of them or something is pretty cool.
Yeah, we could survive without them. Honestly,
Yep.
it could be just little cardboard tokens that there's writing on them that says Wolf 1, Wolf 2, Wolf 3. Doesn't freaking matter.
Yep.
Just ups the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some things are nice, some things can be distracting. I'm still not sure where I stand with the real life tabletop gaming. I've been seeing quite high-tech gaming tables being built in DIY.
Yeah.
I've seen stuff that's like, say, wow, this looks freaking amazing. It's just that for those that are anachronists, I would say that instead of tracing a map out in pencil and putting pieces of paper on it so you could do the fog of war, you just made it in Photoshop or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I bought a TV and I had $500, and I'm like, well, I'm going to buy this TV. And it was 32 inches, it was a high def TV. And I'm like, but my entire purpose of it is I'm going to lie it flat, mount it in my coffee table, put a sheet of glass over it, and hook a laptop up to it, and it would just be a virtual tabletop, right? I never actually did that. Because it was right at the time where we kind of stopped using miniatures at all and just moved to entirely theater of the mind combat, and which seemed to be more the preference of my gaming group at the time. So, but the idea was sound.
I don't know. It could be handy to be around. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. A more portable solution that I've seen is using a projector, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, what I did for a little while, and this was just using my phone, was I would use my phone and I'd have a drawing app on it. And so I'd have the map on my phone. Then I would use layers to basically obscure the entire map and then erase it as I went, as the players explored the dungeon. And then I would save it. Then I would just save it on my wife's computer. The PlayStation 3 would pick up the file off the computer and display it on the TV. And so, you have like a 40-inch TV in the end of the game room, and it's just this live map updated as I erased where the party went. And it worked really good for a while. So it gave them, so they didn't have to map, and they could see what they did. They could see what hadn't been explored yet.
Yeah, and let's be honest, most people don't map.
No, and not well.
Yeah, I've seen it. I mean, I've been sessions that we haven't met for like 2 weeks or so, and said, okay, so guys, the DM will go, okay, let's pick up where we left off last time. And everyone would turn to the DM and go, hey, where did we left off? No one would note a thing down, which is the same, really. That's a tip for all the players. Try to give a helping hand to your DMs. They're trying hard for your fun.
Yeah. Well, it's tough, even with play by post, where you've got a written record of everything you've done right on the same.
Tell me about it. I mean, you found Adam's extension for a browser quite handy, actually, that you could just press on the single page, the one page option, it
Yep.
goes whoop, and you could just scroll around and not flipping through pages and trying to figure out where the hell it was.
Yeah, even the backfill option I use all the time, where it just adds the last 20 or 30 posts. Yeah.
Especially when you got a new page, a single post.
Yeah.
And most of the times it's one freaking line,
Yeah.
which can be a bit frustrating. So yeah, backfill is quite handy there as well.
So speaking of frustrating, I guess my last question I've got for you is, when you first joined GamersPlane, what did you find the hardest thing to become used to or acclimated to?
Well, okay, let me get this from the beginning. Actually, finding my way to get to a game was simply and maybe harshly put, a disaster. I'm sorry, there are no hard feelings. I mean, I'm here, I got into games, so everything's fine, but it's not easy. There's like, you got the join a game tab, you get the forums where you, and as you and me both know well, there's also the Discord that a game might actually pop spontaneously.
Yeah. Yeah, I've created games from Discord. Like, user Windy Ridge one time said, hey, has anybody seen the new Solomon Kane game? And I'm like, oh, I'm buying it. So you want to play? Yeah. And then, so I just like, anybody else want to play Solomon Kane? Like 2 or 3 other people chimed in and I launched the game. I was in Mexico on holiday at the time. But yeah, entirely from Discord. And it was like, from 20 minutes from mentioning it, the game had been built and recruited for it.
You just can't stop, can you?
No.
And you're a bad influence, I must say, because I came in on GamersPlane with little to no experience, and I was a bit drawn back by 3.5 edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, okay, I will go with the 5th. I mean, it's the most recent one. That's what I see people play. So let's give it a shot. And after I got into the game, I've been bombarded with, hey, look, there's this game, but it's not a 5e, it's different system. And, okay, let's try this, why not? And another. So I'm in 4 games at the moment. The 4th is in the making with it's 13th Age.
Right, with Falcon Left?
Yes, exactly, yeah. And Windy Ridge.
Yeah.
So there's that, there's the D&D game, there's this Frontier Space game, yes. And there's the Tales from the Loop.
Yeah.
So that's 4 different games, and the only games that are a bit similar are the 2 D20 based ones.
Right.
I mean, I was supposed to be reading about 13th Age and making my characters, so sorry, that's his fault, not mine.
Yeah.
But there are quite a lot of differences, actually, so there's still a lot of reading involved.
Yeah. Actual gameplay will be very familiar for 13 Age for you, but the terminology is different. And the first time I played it, I just there were things I just didn't understand, like the icons, they call them.
Yes.
And they're very arcane, but I think once they really make sense once you've thought about it for a while, but
It's another concept that you have to get familiar with.
yeah. Yeah.
Like frontier space for me was so difficult to get, because I was coming from a D20 when you have to meet at least or go over a target number, and then you have frontier space where you have to be less than the target number.
Yeah, and if you have disadvantage, you swap the two digits. So if you roll 35, you take the worst of 35 and 53.
Yes.
That's just weird.
It's fun. It's fun. I mean, it's once you get over it, and that's where a good DM shows and shines. That's props to Karagel for his gaming, because I mean, I'm usually going like PMing my DMs. Okay, I want to do this. How do I actually roll about it? And they've been really helpful. I mean, and Frontier Space is actually really flexible. Don't want to spoil anything, but you've seen what I did.
Yeah.
Quite recently. I mean, was supposed to use my skills to make us sneak over some space crabs or something. And my roll was that bad that it actually took Kalajel a while to figure out how to describe this in a post.
Yeah.
I mean, I was chatting with him over Discord, and he was like, "Whoa, how am I going to make this happen?" At the moment when I saw the roll, I was like, "Okay, we're all dead."
Yeah. Yeah. Now, bad rolls are legendary, and especially around my gaming table, like there are opportunities for a DM to really change things up. And so players, some of my players will often look forward to them. They like the critical failure aspect because things just turn on a dime, right? In this game I'm running for Rune Kundig, Savage Worlds, he recently rolled very poorly, and so I used it as an opportunity to introduce an old enemy from his past. And so then the story became, well, involved him a lot more. But it was largely based upon that opportunity presented by a really bad roll.
Yeah, bad rolls are quite funny, actually. And the funniest thing is that when you go for something that's absurd, really, and just posting it for fun, and your roll comes out like a natural 20 or so. I mean, my D&D game, there was this door that was locked, and people wanted to assist one another and lockpick it. And my half-orc Eldritch Knight character went like body slam. And I honestly did it for the fun. I was thinking like, I'm rolling an ace. I'm bouncing off that door like I don't know what, but like a fly or something. But it would be fun.
Yeah.
And I'm rolling, and it's a 19, and I'm like, and just posting it out like DM describing it like you're trying to pick the lock, and you see a blur and a splinter, you hear loud noise and splinters, and the door is busted in your faces.
Yeah.
It can get fun.
Yeah. So you've joined Gamers Playing. You're in 4 games now. What do you think your dream experience would be? What are you most hoping to find or really happen?
A dream. I mean, one I guess it would be games to be concluded
Okay.
properly. I mean, I'm not. I understand that for playing games, and especially when played by post, when it's a slower pace. Let's be honest, we know that. But you want the thing to end at some point, or at least close, make a circle. It's like a TV series, you know. Let one season end, give small closure, a small I don't know, cliffhanger or anything, and let's move on, even if it's not at the same premises. Closure is good in general.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty wise, and it took me a little while on Gamers Playing to realize that too. Is that in real life, I largely end up in these long, overarching games. They're sandbox games. There's just there's no limit to it, right? There's no end in sight, and we just play until we get bored, and then we switch to something else. But
Which is
it's less satisfying than coming to the end of an adventure and having that resolution and closure. Yeah.
I mean, there are things that could branch out. I mean, like the D&D campaign that I'm into at the moment. It's so well thought out, actually, that there could be parallel parties running in it, and there could be some mixing parties and matching them differently. So I'm playing with you at the moment, and next day I'm playing with Adam, because party switched in a glorious way or something.
Interesting.
But it can branch out, but eventually you would want some closure. I mean, I don't want to get to the point that I will have to PM my game master and say, okay, this is getting too long for me. Please let me go, find a way, replace me or something.
Well, I'm sure a number of people watching this video will have gotten that email from me at some point. I've left a fair number of games over the years, and for various reasons. And sometimes they just peter out, and sometimes games aren't what you expected from them, or different play styles.
I've been in that place, actually, you know, especially when you are trying different systems that you're not familiar with. They can, if you let them get you under, it can get frustrating. But no, just give them a shot. I mean, at least try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work for you. I mean, ghosting is one thing that's been bad already. I mean, I'm seeing just checking games, you know, that are still open or something, or even closed games that they have not a full list of players, because there's always this one guy that's invited but haven't accepted him, haven't gotten into the game.
Right. Yeah, there's, you brought up the frustration of trying to find a game. And so I created a video with some help from the community to try and give people an expectation of what to find when they get to the site, because it is kind of labyrinthine. Speaking, oh, you're in Crete, the home of the original Labyrinth.
That's true. Yeah. It's a bit less complex in Gamers Playing actually, but still it's a process you need to familiarize yourself with.
Yeah.
I mean, for starters, I myself didn't even know about the introductory part of the forums. So I've been in the site for like since February, I think, and I made my introductory post like this month or so, I think, maybe at the end of the previous month, which is okay. I mean, I've been gaming with some people for some time now already. People have been seeing me in Discord for sure. That's one thing. And my introductions came a tiny bit late. So yeah, I mean, the process for someone new would probably be go make your introductory post. For me, it would be get yourself into Discord. And you don't have to participate in chit chat and stuff like that. Just lurk around, wait in the shadows, and an opportunity may come. And it happens. Then, and that's how I got into the Frontier Space game. I think I posted in a interest check on Discord. I mean, I did a post on the forums as well, but I didn't expect anything from the forums because I couldn't wait. So for people that can't wait, Discord can be a bit helpful. It is more immediate, but it's nature. I mean,
So one thing I'll mention to you and to anybody else watching is that there's a lot of GMs out there like me that have capacity to run additional games, but they need to be inspired sometimes. And so when somebody says something like, as I mentioned, hey, Solomon Kane, I'm like, you know what? I've loved that series. I could run a game. And so just the act of posting an interest check, like, hey, I'd like to play a D&D 5th edition game where we're all on part of a mounted patrol that sweeps across the plains. There's probably a DM out there going like, that sounds great. I would run that. And so making that interest check as a player saying, I'm looking for a specific game could generate that game. It's happened.
Yeah, that's fairly true.
Yeah.
I mean, and even if you don't get someone to run it, I mean, if you're open running it, you can get some advice on. I mean, I was interested in Fringe or / X-Files inspired game. And people like, hey, if you want to run, there are some systems that you could try. Yeah, not happening anytime soon. I mean, for me running it, but yeah, I'm still not comfortable in DMing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with the rule sets yet.
I have no advice on becoming a new DM other than it's easy. It's shockingly easy because you're just making stuff up. So on play by post, it's 10 times easier because you don't need to know the rules. I'm running games right now. I don't know the rules at all. Like It doesn't matter though, because because of the time frame we have between posts, I can learn the system. I can learn, it's like, oh, critical failure. I'm like, I have no idea what a critical failure means. Let me just look it up. So then you go through the rules and you read all the instructions and then, okay, well, this is how you resolve it. All of that can occur as if I'm an expert DM, because between every post, I can look at what I need to know for the next post. So play by post, I think, makes the DM's job a lot easier. If I was running a game at a table, I'd want to know all of that in advance and enough that I could teach it.
Yeah, and the amount of time that one is given until he can pause or make a decision, it can make things easier for people that are unfamiliar with a system or the rules, because you do have time to look things up.
Yeah. So, well, in the interest of closure, we talked about, maybe we should wrap things up. I know you've got a busy day at the beach tomorrow. Those beautiful Cretan beaches we've seen only on pictures.
Yeah, probably I would go in the morning. Haven't decided on which one yet, but it would be on the northern side of the island for sure. The southern is more cold still.
Is it? Oh, interesting. All right.
So, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for making time for this, and I'm sure we'll be in many games.
We pretty much already done this in segments in chatting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, Discord is a real game changer for this sort of thing. Not just an interview on YouTube, but Gamers Playing as well, by facilitating that immediate contact.
Yeah, I mean, you could just, even if it's not immediate, I mean, I would just go on my phone and check what's being chatted about in Discord, and I would find something interesting, and maybe I PM you in Discord and said, hey, about this thing that you were talking about, are you making a game, or how I could play that thing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a more direct means of getting in touch.
Yeah.
Either way.
All right. Well, thanks again. And again, this is. Hi, and welcome to Gamers Explain QQ&AA, or Qralloq's questions and asks answers. Is that what we said it was? Today, I've got a couple questions that have a similar bend to them. The first one is about battle maps. And what do we use for battle maps? Well, the answer is as wide and varied as there are users on Gamers Playing. So here are the types of solutions we've used. I've seen people just use text. So you put a number of spaces and maybe a T for a tree and maybe initial for a player. And then so you just type out in a row each things like you're making a grid but a text. Now this doesn't work super well because the default font is not monospaced, which means that the lines are different lengths and things don't really line up and what have you. You can use some CSS
to install or to force it to use a monospaced font, and then it works. But it's actually a fair bit of work to type out all that things out, especially when people move and you gotta update. People will use, and I've used, Google Slides. Now, Google Slides allows you to take an image, like in a pre-existing map, and then by leaving it open, the other players can use icons to slide their characters around whenever they move. And so it works out fairly well. There are some hiccups. For example, you might accidentally move the whole map as a player, in which case then everything ceases to line up. Qralloq uses this pretty masterfully, and includes things like status effect icons, which you can put on creatures or players and what have you. When I've done this, I've also updated the battle map using a layer-based image editing software to create a layer of gray over top of the existing map from the that I'm using. And then I can erase the gray layer, revealing the map as players explore, and simply just upload the new background on top of the Google slide, which then very neatly allows you to use the fog of war sort of issue. My cat is going to wreck something here. Roll20 is another example where you can put a map up, you can create some icons, slide them around, take a screenshot of it, post the screenshot. Requires a bit of update on the GMs because, as far as I know, the map isn't always persistent, so you got to recreate it each time.
Recording in progress.
Owl Bear Rodeo is another utility people use, and I have not looked at Owl Bear Rodeo, but that's Owl Bear for those of you who are going to Google it. Owl Bear Rodeo. So rodeo or radio? Well, I'm pretty sure you'll find it. So the usage of that, I don't know, but I've gotten a lot of information from people that say that they quite like it. Now, the last one, and I'll do a tutorial on this fairly soon, is about on-the-fly battle maps. And so OTF BM, and I think that's .com, but it might be .io. So this is a very simple inline. You just call the website and allow the parameters as part of the web address that you're calling to. You post that as an image tag, and it just works. It's you can change icon size, you can use a background for the map, you can change the grid size, and you can actually create walls and doors and that sort of things as well in order to actually draw the whatever area you're in if you don't want to use an actual background as the map. You can use grids. Now you can't drag the icons, you have to just manually retype it, but it's actually fairly easy to do. And if all your players were comfortable with it, they could simply post new map after their move without actually leaving the play-by-post site that you're doing that on. Now, the last part of this question is kind of a broader one, which is, I think from Antiproduct, who was looking at a local D&D site in his area and tried to bring up play-by-post as a way that people could play more D&D together. And he was getting some feedback on, like, what does this really mean? How do you get everybody together at the same time? How do you do roles? How do you share character sheets? What, there's no grid maps and tokens? Um, it's a shame people end up doing this, hope that you get to play at least one game in real life. You have to wait for somebody to respond. So all of these things are features of play-by-post, but they are bugs if you're looking for a real life gaming experience. They're different, right? So as I suggested, grid maps and tokens, you can handle it. Just requires a little bit of thought on the GM's part in advance. Roles, many play-by-post sites do have built-in dice rollers. You can even get them for Discord if you're. I've played play-by-post on Discord, which can be a little bit faster, and you can have built-in rolling bots. I've talked to at least one person who said if they had to give up either real live gaming or play-by-post gaming, they would give up live gaming. And I'm pretty close to that myself. I think I haven't really gamed much in the last year, well, at all. And I'm fairly comfortable with play-by-post and the way that it operates. And so I like just being able to play all the time and not having to wait once every 2 weeks or once every month for everybody's schedules to align, and then somebody doesn't show up, and or maybe you're not in the right mood at that one exact time. You need to be an actor for your players or an actor for your GM, and you have to wait for someone to respond. Yes, well, that is an issue. There are games that are fairly high speed. I was in one where they looked for multiple posts per day per person, and that lasted for a week or two, and then the GM just disappeared and I left the game. So generally you do have to wait. Yeah, it can be frustrating if you're excited to find out what happens. So I hope that helps answer those questions about battle maps and about other features of live gaming like dice rolling and character sheets and battle maps that don't seem like they've got an obvious solution in play-by-post. Rest assured, we've thought of them. We're implementing them as much as we care to as GMs. And I hope that this has been helpful. So look forward to, in the near future, probably in the next week or so, a separate tutorial on using on-the-fly battle map, and which I'm not associated with. I just think it's great. So I'll put that up. I'm also looking to do a tutorial on how to create your own game, which, if you know anything about me, I've done a lot. And it's an evolving process. So I'm going to use that and Len Peltier's tips on recruiting for a game and put that into a video demonstrating the what I think are best practices. Thank you. Hey, welcome to Canadian Action News, you hosers. This is Qralloq. Looking around, and it's like super warm outside. I don't know about you, but it's a good day to be inside and playing some play-by-post games, eh? Anyway, the forecast is for the weather to drop below 30, and if you're in the US, that's like freezing, eh? So we're really hoping to get some games going, and really hope that all of you can participate. There's this thing, where we do this introductions, and people will sign up on the site, and then they'll go to the introductions tag and let us know about themselves. Anyway, shout out to Millie from Greece, Wow, long ways. Bet you it's hot there, And anyway, and Witch Doctor, thanks for joining us, man. And Thaney and Blue, welcome to the site. I hope you find some great games, And Jabes, wow, great to see you, man. Jabes in the Philippines. I bet you it's hot there too, Probably talk about that all day long about how hot it is in places. But so good day to get inside and play some play-by-post gaming, and under the air conditioning, right? Maybe you wouldn't have to wear these hats. Yeah. Hi, and welcome to Qralloqian Lore, a secret tip and trick to using GamersPlane. When you create a game, you have the ability to create threads using this New Thread button. This creates threads that are stacked in basically the order you create them, I believe, and that if you had a whole bunch of threads, they would just be a big list of them. But sometimes you want to organize things. For example, maybe you want to keep your background details apart from those. So in this game, I've created a subforum where there are one background thread for each player. Now, how did I do that? Well, if I go to the administrative control panel, which is something that the GM can see, if I click that, right at the beginning is the ability to create a new subforum. So I could create a test for GXP, for example. If I add that, then there you go. It's listed. I could even reorder them. Maybe I want to put it first. So there I swapped the orders twice, so they're in the same order I started with. But you can see that now this new subform is there, and I could create a new thread. There is I'll also show you how you can manage that. So in this, you can see that we can edit these things. So I could change this to secret test and update it. Now, if I go back, the thing is now called secret test. Okay, now the additional feature that you can use is that sometimes when you create a game, you want the players to be able to hide things from each other. Maybe you just want a thread for one-on-one discussion with the other players or with one player that the other players cannot see. So how do you do that? Well, you could do it in a note, a private note just to that player. But then the other players get notifications every time you post. And then they look and they see that there's a secret note, curses. But the other thing you could do is you can't do it on the thread level. Well, each subforum can have separate permissions on who can view it. So by default, anybody who joins the game has wide open permissions. So you can change the permissions for a forum to block players. So if you go to, make sure you click on the name, and you go to this permissions tab, and you can see that there are each user and the GM are created. So if I want to block Runekendig, because I like to pick on him. So I create a permission for him, then I edited it. I can set read to no and save it. Okay, now if I go back to the details, secret test, Runekendig. Let's see. Wow. Okay, so now I've created this forum where I've blocked one of my favorite players. Why do people leave games? Okay, so you see that I can see it. I'm the GM. Theoretically, Bola, Spanish, Machiavelli, and Windy Ridge can all see that. But Runekendig will not be able to see that forum. And so you could create, instead of creating background details where every thread is within a subforum, create separate subforums and then set the permissions to block the new, block the people that you do not want to be able to see those ones. User Drama Sailor has at one time indicated that if you create a group permission for everybody, block everybody from being able to see stuff, then you give everybody the permissions to see what you want them to see. So rather than so you do it backwards. So you basically nobody can see anything, and then you enable people to see things when you want them to do so. Now, this is important when a new player joins the game because they start off with no permissions, no specific permissions for them. So if you're blocking users from seeing in the same way that I did for RuneCondig, that you'll have to add a permission to every forum or subforum that you want to block the new user from. This is Qralloq and Qralloqian Lore. Well, thanks for joining me for episode 7 of Gamers Explain. Again, this continues to be a project that defies categorization or expectations, and it's continuously evolving and looking to, really focus on the interviews, but I'm having fun too doing some of the other stuff. I'd like to thank Antiproduct for joining me from the Isle of Crete in late at night there, which was, early afternoon for me, and even after a fairly lengthy conversation, we talked for a couple hours offline, and which was great too. And I'd like to thank everybody who's been submitting topics for the QQ&AA. I'm hoping in the future that some of these will be group presentations, a round robin discussion. But one of the great things about play-by-post is you don't need to schedule people to be available at exactly the same time in real life. So that's a bit of a departure from what we do best, but maybe it's worth it because some of these topics are fairly important. And I'm just one guy with one opinion on many of these matters. Next week, I have a huge interview, an hour and 40 minutes with Harrigan from Colorado. And him and I probably could have doubled that in length easy as well. Found a great deal of topics. The two of us spent a fair bit of time talking about how play-by-post really operates and how to really use that well and use its advantages well. We can do anything we want, of course, in a play-by-post. You're the GM and the players can decide on anything, but there's some things that seem to work better in general. So we talked a fair bit about that. And also recorded an interview with a philosopher from Montreal, and we talked for quite a while as well. And I think I kept that interview to about an hour. And so hopefully those will be up on time next week and on the 16th. So this is Qralloq, and thank you for joining me for episode 7 of Gamers Explain.